want hot takes?
No, I'm not going to apologize to Ryan Day. Everything we said about Ryan Day up until the playoffs was true.
Not bad. Come on, Kenner. You can do better than that.
To be fair, of all the elite quarterbacks in the NFL, Joe Burrow is the least accomplished.
Getting better.
1,000,000%. I 1,000,000% believe that the Dayton Flyers are afraid of the Wright State Raiders. That's why they come up with every excuse in the book not to play them.
There it is. The hottest take of them all. It's the Justin Kinner Show, presented by Frickers, live on 1410 ESPN Radio.
All right, here we go. Happy Wednesday, everybody. It is the Justin Kinner Show, presented by Frickers, right here on Dayton's ESPN Radio, 1410 Wing AM. Frickers, your home for fun, food, sports, and spirits. Off and rolling here on a Wednesday. A lot to get into. Again, another shortened show. We do have Reds baseball coming up at 4. Red spring training action going to walk you right in to Big Ten tournament play for your Ohio State Buckeyes. Ohio State going to take on Iowa. 5:15 coverage begins, and then 6 o'clock will be the tip-off. Ohio State on the bubble. Can they strengthen their bubble hopes, their at-large hopes? We'll get to all of that coming up around the corner. Ohio State, Iowa, 6 o'clock. Red spring training baseball coming up at 4. We have all that coming up for you right after this show, which will take you right up to about 4 o'clock. Before sending it over there, I do want to talk some Reds. We haven't talked Reds a lot as of late. I talked a little Reds yesterday, just in regards to my rant about, all the other extracurricular stuff that the Reds front office spends money on outside of the product on the field. But to be fair, the product on the field, I'm pretty excited about for this upcoming season. And I was pretty excited about the Reds last year. Obviously, injuries derailed that. You had your sophomore slumps, which derailed a lot of what happened last year. But I feel pretty good. This is a more experienced young group. It's still a pretty young group. Don't get me wrong, but it's a young group that is heading into year 3 for your Ellie De La Cruzes and your Spencer Steers. Obviously, you have your Friedels who have been around for a while. You obviously, you have your Tyler Stevenson, who is a full-on veteran at this point when it comes to this Reds team. I like the makeup of it. You have an all-star caliber player. Yes, you have an MVP contender, in my opinion, in Ellie De La Cruz. We've been through this before. I truly believe Ellie De La Cruz has what it takes to win an MVP this upcoming season. If Ellie De La Cruz performs the way he did last year, and he's probably going to have an even better season than last year, if he does that while the Reds are winning, contending for the division, I think he has a very good shot at going head-to-head with Shohei Ohtani to win the MVP out of the National League. We've talked about that. I feel pretty good about it. But for the Reds to do what they need to do, it's all going to come down to pitching. And pitching is something I want to talk about as we open up the show here today. Again, I'm Justin Kinner, the Justin Kinner Show, presented by Frickers. Frickers, your home for fun, food, sports, and spirits. Go to the Justin Kinner Show Facebook page. You could watch the show. That's where you could jump in the conversation. I'll interact with you there. But coming up here for the spring training game at 4 o'clock for your Cincinnati Reds, we're going to get to see Andrew Abbott for the first time this spring. And the reason that this start for Andrew Abbott really interests me is because 162-game season, you are going to be battling through injuries throughout the year. There's no way around it. It's the unfortunate part about it. But what you want to do is to at least head into a season to get off to a hot start, to at least set the tone. And I don't want this team banged up and injured to start the season. And luckily, knock on wood, this team's been okay in that department. But the Reds did release their rotation late last week. Hunter Green will be your opening day starter. No surprise there. Your rotation for the Reds, Hunter Green, Nick Lodolo, Nick Martinez, and, of course, Brady Singer. That's 4 names. 5-man rotation, 4 names. They have not listed who's going to be that 5th and final starter of the rotation. And it should be Andrew Abbott. That's why I'm very intrigued by this start for Andrew Abbott coming up later on today. It is spring training. I know you guys are rolling your eyes, not putting a whole lot of stock into spring training. I'm putting a lot of stock into spring training. I think it's silly when people say spring training doesn't matter. Oh, man, Ellie De La Cruz hitting .560 during spring, multiple home runs, multiple stolen bases. The guy's been electric. Well, who cares? It matters what he does in late March, early April, May, June, July, August, September, hopefully October. But you mean to tell me that him getting off to such a hot start in spring, you don't think that helps confidence-wise heading in? Like, I'd much rather this team be playing really, really well during spring to take some confidence in. If you have a horrible spring, if you can't hit the ball in spring, during spring training, your first series, opening day, your first series, your first week of the season, 2 weeks of the season, Rather than wasting time the first couple weeks of the season trying to build up your confidence, have that confidence heading into the season. I think it's foolish and silliness anytime somebody says spring training doesn't matter. It matters. It matters, which is why I think that this start coming up for Andrew Abbott is so pivotal for how the Reds are going to operate this upcoming season, and especially to start. Don't bury yourself in the month of April. The Reds have had a habit in recent seasons of shooting themselves in the foot. Then they start playing good baseball. But because they've buried themselves in such a quick hole early, it's been hard to play out of it. It's a long season. You may not win a World Series in April, but you sure do cost yourself the playoffs in April, and it's happened one too many times. It's a new era, though, obviously, with Terry Francona leading the way, which is something I'm excited about. So, at the end of the day, as we sit here right now, Andrew Abbott getting the start. Who's going to be that fifth and final deciding starter in that rotation? It should be Andrew Abbott. Hunter Green leading opening day starter, Nick Lodolo being your day 2 starter. I was actually pretty surprised that Nick Martinez was the third. You gave up a lot to go get a Brady Singer, but that's the point. I think the fact that Brady Singer is your number 4 pitcher in the rotation shows you just how good this rotation is. Brady Singer is a very, very good pitcher. Brady Singer, you're not going to see him until the 4th game of the season. It's going to take almost a week before you get to see one of the biggest acquisitions in the offseason for the Reds. That's how good this rotation is. Cy Young caliber pitcher in Hunter Green. Nick Lodolo, who has the stuff to rival Hunter Green to be the top pitcher in this rotation, but we need to see it for longer than a month. I think that's key. And Nick Martinez, I was very shocked to see. So Charlie Goldsmith, he comes on with us a lot on Chatterbox. He's been on this show quite a lot before started working with them, but he's come on many times. He put out a piece on Nick Martinez not too long ago saying, if you go look at the numbers that Nick Martinez put up just as a starter last year, Nick Martinez's starts, there were only 12 pitchers that had better numbers than Nick Martinez last year as a starter. Nick Martinez didn't start pitching in the starting role until the last 2 months of the season. Otherwise, probably would have been a much more coveted season from that standpoint. It's just he came out of the bullpen early and then became a starter late because the Reds were just banged up with injuries. I'm Justin Kinner. It's the Justin Kinner Show presented by Frickers. Nick Martinez is a pretty damn good pitcher. And if Nick Lodolo struggles, who, by the way, has not looked great in spring, if Nick Lodolo does not get off to a hot start to start the season, it's not going to surprise me at all. Although you do want a lefty in that rotation. Don't get me wrong, you need more lefties. But I do love the fact that you have Hunter Green, Nick Martinez, and Brady Singer, 3 pitchers that you can count on. Nick Martinez has been great in spring. Hunter Green has been lights out his last 2 starts. I don't know if you guys have had a chance to take a look at how the Reds have performed as of late. But Hunter Green, in his last 8 innings of work, back-to-back 4-inning outings, his last 8 innings of work, he's given up 1 earned run on 4 hits. He struck out 11 batters and only walked 1. Hunter Green is rolling right now. He's rolling. I'd like to see him. I mean, there's still 15 days to opening day. Maybe 1-2 more outings for him is what you'll probably see, is my guess. But, man, if he could take that into opening day, set the tone for the season, look out. Brady Singer, his start yesterday, 4 innings of work. He struck out 7. He gave up no earned runs. Gave up 1 hit. He only walked 1 batter. He has an ERA. He has a 2.35 ERA this spring. I brought up earlier just how good can the Reds be this year, and it's all going to be based on pitching. I love what I've seen from Hunter Green. Nick Martinez has been great. He was great last year, and obviously I love what we're seeing from Brady Singer. There's still question marks I have regarding Nick Lodolo. I don't trust Nick Lodolo, but I've seen greatness from Nick Lodolo. I've seen a month-long stretch where he looks like the best pitcher in baseball. I've also seen a simple blister. I'm 5'5", I'm 200 pounds, I am unathletic. I have had a blister that goes away in 3 days and I'm fine. How does a blister derail a professional athlete? That's what happened last year. I thought when they said he got a blister on his throwing hand, I said, oh, it's just a blister. Just don't throw for a week, 2 weeks, you'll be fine, right? We didn't see Nick Lodolo the rest of the year. A blister knocked him out. We have to see more toughness. We have to see more availability, durability. We have to see that all from Nick Lodolo. But Nick Lodolo, to me, is the biggest key to this team being a legitimate contender for just the wild card or an NL Central contender. If Nick Lodolo is great this year, they're winning this division because you have Hunter Green, you have Nick Martinez. You know what you get, obviously, with Brady Singer If you get a dominant season from Nick Lodolo to complement those other three pitchers, they're winning this division. And that's just 4 names I've mentioned. Andrew Abbott's making his debut today this spring. Like to see him get quite a few outings before we get to opening day. I don't know if he'll be right away just thrown out there as the 5th starter in the rotation. But again, they have about a month before they have to worry about that, at least 3 weeks. You have 2 weeks to opening day. 2 weeks from tomorrow is opening day. So you have about 3 weeks before you have to decide who's going to be that 5th starter in the rotation for that time around. It could be Graham Ashcraft right off the bat. I don't want Graham Ashcraft in this rotation. I want it to be, obviously, Andrew Abbott. So I'm excited to see what Andrew Abbott looks like coming up later on. David Shaw, again, we're live on the Justin Kinner Show Facebook page. David Shaw says, "What up, Kinner? Surprised you weren't on the course." Me too. I want to be out on the golf course, but not yet. Not yet. Ann Anderson, I hope you are well. Ann Anderson says, I think they should all go with the 5-man rotation. Maybe there wouldn't be so many injuries. No, they're going to have a 5-man rotation, and it's just right now they don't know who that 5th man is going to be. They know who their top 4 are. They know Hunter Green will be the opening day starter. They know Nick Lodolo, Nick Martinez, and, of course, Brady Singer will be 2, 3, and 4 in the rotation. They just don't know who the 5th starter is yet in that rotation. If everything's equal and all are healthy, it's Andrew Abbott. You also have Graham Ashcraft. You also have Rhett Lauder. I think if you ask anyone in the Reds organization right now, they don't want Rhett Lauder to start the season on the roster right now. I think you want Rhett Lauder back in the minor leagues. He did have a limited throwing program throughout spring thus far. There's still 2 weeks to go. He started spring on a limited throwing program, kind of resting and nursing an injury coming in. I don't think you want to force that. He was prematurely called up to make his debut for the Reds last September because the Reds had their entire rotation decimated with injuries. I would not want to force him out there because he was the only guy. When you think about the Matt McClains and the Spencer Steers and the Ellie De La Cruzes, and you think of the rookies, okay, that have been called up over the last couple of seasons, they all got called up according to the desired timeline. They knew that there was at least there was a certain amount of innings they wanted these certain pitchers to get before being called up. Same thing with the at-bats and innings and outings, talking about the likes of Ellie De La Cruz, Spencer Steer, Matt McClain, Christian Encarnacion Strand, Noelvi Marte, guys like that. And all of those other guys were called up according to plan. The only one that wasn't was Rhett Lauder. Rhett Lauder was the only one that was called up prematurely because there was no one healthy for the Reds rotation in the month of September last year, so he got called up prematurely. He was lights out. He was great. But when you also have, obviously, when you look at the Reds rotation right now and you look at kind of who they drafted, Chase Burns with the number 2 pick last year. Chase Burns is their number 1 prospect right now. We've seen one outing from him in spring. Chase Burns coming from Wake Forest, of course. He says it's a goal to be called up as soon as possible. All right, he's had one outing. He threw 1 inning last week. He faced 3 batters, striking out all 3 of them. And he threw for over 100 miles per hour, I think, of like 4 of those pitches. Guy's unreal. Going to be unreal. But you're going to have Rhett Lauder and you're going to have Chase Burns as your top 2 players in the minor league system right now for the Reds. And I think that is a good insurance policy with the depth that you have at pitching. I like the depth that they have at pitching. Graham Ashcraft could be used in the bullpen. Graham Ashcraft is good enough to get you 1-2 good solid innings. He hasn't been a reliable starter. We've seen solid outings from him as a starter, but he regressed last year. Maybe some of that's due to injury. He's going to have another shot at it, but I would like to see what Graham Ashcraft can do with another opportunity out there when it's all said and done. All right. I'm Justin Kinner. It's the Justin Kinner Show presented by Frickers. Stop on out at one of your local neighborhood Frickers for their frickin' lunch combo at $10.99. The frickin' lunch combo features many options, such as the frickin' chicken chunks, cheeseburgers, the charbroiled chicken wrap, and the frickin' chicken wrap. You can also get a side. You also get a side and a drink, all for $10.99. The frickin' chicken lunch combo is available Monday through Friday at your neighborhood Frickers anytime between 11 a.m. and 2 p.m. And that's dine-in and carry-out, by the way. Frickers, your home for fun, food, sports, and spirits. Appreciate our friends over at Frickers. Again, we're going to be live at Frickers a week from tomorrow. The Frickers in Centerville, at the Centerville location for the first day of the NCAA tournament for the first round game. So next Thursday, a week from tomorrow, at the Frickers in Centerville, Kev and I will be setting up live doing the show that day from 3 to 5 at the Frickers in Centerville, watching the first round games of the NCAA tournament, and of course doing the show live on location. And we do look forward to seeing you guys there. We'll have some prizes and other cool stuff to give away. Keep that in mind. We'll be out on location a week from tomorrow, Frickers in Centerville, coming up next week. All right, speaking of the NCAA tournament, speaking of March Madness, Ohio State's going to be in action coming up here a little bit, 6 o'clock to tip off, 5:15 coverage will begin. We'll have some spring training baseball from 4 to 6 before we hand it off to the Buckeyes. Keep that in mind. But let's talk about Ohio State. Let's talk about the Dayton Flyers. The Cincinnati Bearcats, well, they were trying to play their way under the bubble, play their way into the tournament by winning the Big 12. They got shellacked just a little bit ago. Xavier is still on the bubble. What can we expect from them in the Big East tournament? The Flyers will be in action later on this week as they are the 3 seed in the A-10 tournament. We'll talk about their chances. Back in January, it looked like we had an opportunity to have 4 teams with that large bids in the state of Ohio. When you looked at Xavier, you looked at Cincinnati, Ohio State, and Dayton. Xavier might be the only one that gets it. We'll talk about that and more when we come back. More of the Justin Kinner Show presented by Frickers next. All right, and we welcome you back. The Justin Kinner Show presented by Frickers, 1410 ESPN Radio. 327 here on a Wednesday here in the Miami Valley. We appreciate you guys tuning in and hanging out with us. The Justin Kinner Show every day, weekdays from 3 to 6 p.m. Been cut short a lot the last couple of weeks due to Reds baseball. Spring training action been right in the middle of the afternoon. We're going to be handing it off to the Reds. Coming up here in about a half hour, we'll have about an hour and a half of spring training baseball before then they'll hand it off to Paul Keels in Ohio State. The Big Ten tournament action coming up. Ohio State has Iowa. Ohio State trying to, they're on the bubble according to some bracketologists out there, but a deep run into the tournament can solidify their chances of getting an at-large bid in the first season, of course, with Jake Diebler leading the way. NFL free agency news and just NFL headlines in general. Earlier today, the Rams had let Cooper Kupp and his representation be known that he will be released at some point today. I haven't refreshed Twitter in a while. I don't know if he's been released yet. But that's a big name just being outright released into the free agent market. So I'd be curious to see what the market's going to be for him. The Kansas City Chiefs freed up $49 million after restructuring the contracts of course, Patrick Mahomes and Chris Jones. Of course, the Kansas City Chiefs, they've been to 3 straight Super Bowls, winning 2 of those 3. They had a chance to win 3 straight before losing to Jalen Hurts, Saquon Barkley, and the Eagles in the most recent Super Bowl. They have work to do. And freeing up $49 million will put them in a good position to do so. What they plan on doing with that will be key. I would not be surprised to see Cooper Kupp being one of the key pieces that they go after, as they need help in offense, as wild as that sounds. Patrick Mahomes obviously he didn't have a lot of help offensively. Not that I'm expecting you guys to feel bad for him, but I will say, man, Patrick Mahomes didn't look very good this year. Well, when you don't have a Jamar Chase and a T. Higgins to throw the football to, and all you have is, you have 2 starting receivers that start the season injured and out for pretty much all season, and you have an aging tight end who's more obsessed with his celebrity girlfriend than he is his NFL career. Yeah, I don't know what you expected out of old Patrick Mahomes this past season. All he did was go 14-2 or 14-3 and lead his team to a 3rd straight Super Bowl. I think the Chiefs will be fine, but they're going to have to give him some more help. As far as that's concerned. How about this? Former Ohio State Buckeye Joey Bosa signs a 1-year, $12 million deal with the Buffalo Bills. How about that? Look, the Los Angeles Chargers outright released Joey Bosa from his most recent contract to free up some cap space. Again, an aging pass rusher. This kind of falls into the same boat as the Trey Hendrickson thing, which we'll talk about more in a moment. But good for the Bills. I like this deal. If you can get a Joey Bosa, that's the thing. Trey Hendrickson, there would be a lot of teams lining up to get a short deal done with him. I think there's a lot of people who are skeptical about giving a long-term deal to a Joey Bosa, a long-term deal to a Trey Hendrickson. But a 1-year, $12 million deal for Joey Bosa, sign me up. I would have loved for the Browns to get a 1-year deal with Joey Bosa. I think that's a hell of a number to get him at. I don't know why the Bengals weren't looking. For 1 year, $12 million. I have no clue why the Bengals weren't lining up to get a deal like that done. Good for the Bills. The Bills had a really good defense last year, and now you go and you add a Joey Bosa to the mix. Good for Buffalo. Good for Josh Allen. That's a front office that knows how to treat their quarterback. They restructured the deal to make him the highest paid quarterback in the NFL with the most guaranteed money in the history of the league. And they extend all the good players around him. They get what they need done. They gave up a 3rd rounder to go get Amari Cooper last year, which he was not good. But they were aggressive. They gave up a 3rd rounder to go get their guy pass catcher. They extended all the great defensive talent on that side of the ball, and then they go and get a Joey Bosa. Good for the Buffalo Bills. Good for Joey Bosa. There you go. Other news out of the AFC North, the Baltimore Ravens, they give another talented pass catcher, another weapon to Lamar Jackson. They go out, of course, and they get DeAndre Hopkins. They sign him to a 1-year deal. So now you have Zay Flowers, you have DeAndre Hopkins, you have Bateman, you have arguably a top 3 running back in Derrick Henry, and you have 2-time MVP quarterback. Probably could have made an argument to be a 3-time MVP this most recent season with the year that he had. The Ravens, I don't know why there's not more pressure on them. I feel like they are in a Super Bowl or bust conversation. They have too much talent on both sides of the ball to be sitting here saying, well, maybe next year's the year Lamar gets it done. Lamar needs to get it done. He's becoming a regular season All-American, and I have no clue why he's getting a pass for his offseason blunder or for his postseason blunders. What do you mean? Everyone's been criticized. Lamar has not been good in the postseason. Stop. He's had one or two really good games that have kind of helped pad some of those. But when the lights have been the brightest, he's disappeared. So we'll see. David Shaw says, isn't cutting Von Miller and replacing him with Bosa the same thing? Well, Von Miller, too, was also regressed last year. And that was the replacement for Von Miller going to get Bosa. But I think Bosa is better than Von Miller. Do you agree with that, Shaw? I'm curious your thoughts. Is Bosa better than Von Miller? I would say I would pick if I'm the Browns and they had to pick between Von Miller and Bosa, I would say give me Joey Bosa in that regards. But that Von Miller contract was one reason they had to move on from Von Miller as well, Shaw. Like I think they wanted to keep Miller, but that contract is what was kind of eating up a lot of cap space. This 1-year deal with Joey Bosa, I think, is a lot more team friendly as far as that goes. I believe I've covered everything out of the NFL unless something new has popped up. I'm not really sure. There's been rumors circulating all day that the Steelers are close to getting a deal done with Aaron Rodgers. No idea what to make of that. Aaron Rodgers, to me, needs to be in Minnesota. I want Aaron Rodgers in Minnesota. If you're Aaron Rodgers, why would you not want to go to Minnesota? When you look at the fact that Minnesota has spent so much money on the defensive side of the ball, it was very smart of them to not have to commit to Sam Darnold to give him $35-40 million a year. They can use that money to go bulk up that defense when you've already taken care of Justin Jefferson, when you have a very good number 2 in Addison, when you have obviously Hutchinson, the tight end, and the run game. Aaron Rodgers, if you can't go to Minnesota and make it work, you're not going to make it work anywhere. If he's worried about following the legacy of Brett Favre, you know how you pass the legacy of Brett Favre? You go win and lead Minnesota to a Super Bowl out of the NFC, because it can be done. You would be, if Aaron Rodgers can play up to the level that he's capable of with Justin Jefferson and Addison and that defense and that run game, I don't think I'm saying that they're not better than the Eagles, but they would be the biggest threat to the Eagles out of the NFC at that point. I don't know who would be a bigger threat to the NFC. I don't know who would be a bigger threat to the Eagles than the Vikings if they have Aaron Rodgers. Then you could say, well, would they be better with Aaron Rodgers at quarterback than Sam Darnold? I believe that they would. Would Aaron Rodgers put up better numbers than Sam Darnold did last year? I wouldn't think so. I think with that defense being significantly better, I think they would lean more into the run game and explosive playmaking on offense with Justin Jefferson, but I don't think that it would be a pass-first offense. I think it would be an explosive offense being balanced out by the run game. I'm kind of giving up on the Lions, Shaw. I'm kind of giving up on the Lions. I don't know why. Shaw says the Lions are good, but I would pick Wufa. If Aaron Rodgers is with the Vikings, I would pick them over the Lions. I would. I think last year, what we keep forgetting is there's a reason that the Vikings moved on from Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold is a very dangerous quarterback. Jared Goff is a dangerous quarterback. I've said this for years. If you go back to the 2010s, the early 2010s with Andy Dalton is the worst quarterback in the history of football that you can have. Not from a talent perspective, but from a situation perspective. You're going to win games with Andy Dalton. You're going to win games with Jared Goff. You're going to win games with Sam Darnold. You're going to win games with Baker Mayfield. You're going to win games with a lot of these types of quarterbacks. You're going to win a lot of games with Geno Smith. But look at the season Geno Smith had last year. The Seahawks just sent him away. You look at Sam Darnold. He threw for 4,300 yards. He threw for 35-plus touchdowns. He completed close to 70% of his passes. He turned the ball over only 11 times. Sam Darnold was great, and yet the Vikings just let that go. Those quarterbacks are the worst quarterbacks to have because they fool you into thinking you have something. The Lions are never going to win a Super Bowl. They're just not. They're not going to win a Super Bowl with Jared Goff at quarterback. I just don't see it. I do not see them winning a Super Bowl with Jared Goff at quarterback. I can't get there at this point. I truly believe that they're going to win 10, 11, 12 games, and they're going to disappear when the postseason gets here. That's what happens with Jared Goff teams. That's what happens with the Andy Dalton type teams, like going back to the early 2010s. That's just how it works. I can't get on board with the Lions just from that perspective. I'm very high on the Vikings. We saw it last year. Everything's there. And I think that would be a better situation than Pittsburgh at this point. Pittsburgh's not a bad spot if you're Aaron Rodgers, as we talked about the other day. I don't think it's a horrible spot, but I also think that those egos over there, that can get ugly quickly. Everyone acts like Mike Tomlin is a leader of men and that he knows how to lead a locker room. His idea of leading a locker room is I'm just going to cut you if you're a problem. And he cuts them. To his credit, he cuts them before they truly become a problem and they go elsewhere to become a problem. But it's like he never gets the best out of those guys. Like Deontay Johnson, he just cut him. Claypool just moved on from him. Obviously, we know Antonio Brown, the head case that he was. You have another volcano that's about to erupt anytime now, and we saw it start to erupt last year in George Pickens. And then you go get DK Metcalf, who had a quarterback that threw for 4,000 plus yards, that you were his number one target. He gave you the ball whenever you wanted, and he still found reasons to complain. It's going to get ugly in Pittsburgh. It is. I could see these personalities start to really clash. However, from a talent perspective, Aaron Rodgers has plenty of options. So we'll see. All right. I'm Justin Kinner, the Justin Kinner Show, presented by Frickers. Frickers, your home for fun, food, sports, and spirits. I had this sent in a little bit ago. Justin, what do your Browns do if they end up getting Kirk Cousins? There's lots of reports that the Cleveland Browns, the second that the Falcons release Kirk Cousins later on this week, that he'll be a Cleveland Brown by the weekend. I think that's the best move. I don't think that you go and I don't think you get that deal done with Myles Garrett just to go complete rebuild mode. That doesn't make any sense. I think getting the deal done with Myles Garrett, whatever, Myles Garrett had a change of heart about the direction that the franchise was going in. And I think that the fact that they've many people, and I've listened to a lot of sports talk over in Cleveland, feel pretty confident that they are going to get Kirk Cousins to lead the way. He's going to be 100% healthy this upcoming season. You're going to get Kirk Cousins. And I think that's going to be key. When you look at the fact that you have Jerry Jeudy, people laugh at me all the time about Jerry Jeudy. Go look at the numbers for Jerry Jeudy. There was only 5 wide receivers that had a better season than he did last year. All 5 of those receivers that had a better year than he did had an actual quarterback throwing him the football. Jerry Jeudy had 1,300 yards last year, and he only played in 14 games. And only 11 of those 14 games that he actually played in did he have competent quarterback play. And not even competent by the back half of the season once again. Like Jerry Jeudy had a breakout year last year. Cedric Tillman had a breakout year last year when he was healthy. I think that the Browns don't have the most impressive wide receiver core in football by any means, but they have some playmakers there. And I think you bring in a Kirk Cousins, right? That offensive line is fine. They gotta add a piece or two, obviously, in the draft coming up just for depth purposes. They'll be fine. I'm not saying they're winning a Super Bowl, but they're much better than people are going to give them credit for. And I'm not willing to get into an argument and die on that hill today. But I think Cleveland will be fine. I don't think Myles Garrett agrees to come back if they were just going to go the rookie quarterback route in general. I think that if you're Cleveland, you go and you get Kirk Cousins. You already got, obviously, Kenny Pickett to compete for that backup spot. And then I do not think you take a quarterback at number 2. I think you stay away from Shador. I think that you take Abdul Carter at 2. You get Kirk Cousins to be your starting quarterback in 25. You get Abdul Carter. And now you have another dominant pass rusher right out of the draft to pair with Myles Garrett. And there's already really good players on that defense. You have one of the best corners, obviously. When you look at who Cleveland has, you look all up and down that roster with Ward and everybody. Cleveland's going to be fine defensively. And I think the fact that you can get an Abdul Carter and bulk up that defense even more with another dominant pass rusher, I think you do that. And then you take a Jalen Milroe in the second round, maybe even wait another round or two, and you kick the tires on a Will Howard. The bottom line is you're not getting your franchise quarterback in this draft. And just because you take a quarterback at number 2, you're definitely not getting your franchise quarterback there. In a normal draft with normal quarterback talent coming out, we wouldn't be seeing Shador going this high. So you don't just take him because he's the best of what's available there. I think that's forcing. I think you take Abdul Carter. I think the Browns, to get the best version of Cleveland in 25, you take Abdul Carter at number 2. And that's what I think is going to end up happening when it's all said and done. We'll see. Kirk Cousins, the starting quarterback. You have Jerry Jeudy, Cedric Tillman throwing them the football. There's talks of getting another deal done with Nick Chubb. It'd be a team-friendly deal. I don't think he's going to have a lot of leverage to get a big deal done anyways. And then they said in the last 10 years, this is the best running back class in the draft. So you're going to get another running back in the draft to put with Nick Chubb. You have Ford already. You have David Njoku at tight end. The Browns will be fine. Not winning the Super Bowl, But for right now, I think they're good enough to compete for a wild card spot and get back into the playoff conversation. Kevin Stefanski, 2-time coach of the year. They'll figure it out. No distractions, no drama with Deshaun in the offseason. He's played his final down as a Brown. I think Cleveland will be just fine with Kirk Cousins at quarterback. And if you miss out on Kirk Cousins and you have to get a Joe Flacco, you've made the playoffs with Joe Flacco before. I'm fine going that direction as well. I'm fine going there as well. Now, here's where things get interesting. You can trade it for Kenny Pickett. Under no circumstance can that be your week 1 starter. Under no circumstance can that be your week 1 starter. If you miss out on Kirk Cousins, if Kirk Cousins decides to go to the Giants because they could pay him more, okay, cool. Great. That's awesome. We'll see what ends up happening there. I think at that point you do take Cam Ward or Shador at number 2. I think at that point you look to take Cam or Shador at number 2. But I don't think it's Shador. If right now, if you look at their draft board, I don't think Shador should be at the top at this moment. I think it's Abdul Carter with the mindset of getting Kirk Cousins. You miss on Kirk Cousins, then I think you go the Shador route, and then I think you kind of really start forcing the rebuild around him. But keep in mind, the other reason I don't think they're going to go Shador high, Kevin Stefanski's coaching for his job this year. Andrew Berry is GMing. He's GMing for his job this year. You know what I mean? Like, I just have a hard time believing that a head coach and a GM who are both working for, and fighting for their jobs are going to say, hey, we're going to go get the most arrogant quarterback in the draft and put our entire hopes and dreams and careers in his hands. Not if you have other options. I think Stefanski can go back to the well with Kirk Cousins and make it work. I think they could win 10, 11 games. Maybe, let me meet you guys halfway. 9 games, 9 or 10 in that range is what I think that they can win. With the Kirk Cousins, Jerry Jeudy, Cedric Tillman, David Njoku, Nick Chubb / Quinshon Judkins, whoever. I think the Browns are a very, very good football team. I do. It is what last year was a disaster. It was. But get Abdul Carter. Myles Garrett gets pissed at the end of the year and demands a trade. Fine. Hopefully you have a dominant pass rusher to replace. You don't replace Myles Garrett, but if you could have someone there to kind of take on some of the production load, I think Abdul Carter is your best bet as far as that goes. The safest draft for the Browns. The safest offseason for the Browns. Kirk Cousins. Draft Abdul Carter number 2. Get a Jalen Milroe in round 2. Running back in rounds 4 or 5. Defensive player, they need a safety. I think in fact, honest to goodness, at the same time, I said a little bit ago, you're not getting a franchise quarterback in this draft. Why would you even take Jalen Milroe or a Will Howard in the 3rd or 4th round? I almost skip out on the quarterback altogether at that point. I would take, so you get Kirk Cousins in free agency at the end of the week. I would take Abdul Carter at 2. I'd get a safety in round 2 because they desperately need a safety. They've tried. They've looked for the safety for years. They have tried so hard. Delpit was a failure. Juwan Thornhill, they went and got him so the Chiefs win a Super Bowl. They cut Thornhill, which is, they move on from Thornhill and the Browns go and get Juwan Thornhill. I thought that was a great get. All right. I thought that was a very great get. It didn't work out. He did not work out in Cleveland. Cool. They've been looking for that safety. Go get a safety in the 2nd round. Get a running back, a top running back in the 3rd round. I don't think Quinshon drops that far. I don't think Ali, the running back from Oklahoma State, I don't know if he drops back that far. Yeah, we'll see. Troy on Facebook says, Cousins, 18 touchdowns, 16 picks, not the same player since the Achilles. Yeah, but he also didn't have the pass catchers. Like most players aren't that great that first season after the Achilles either. Dak Prescott wasn't very good coming off that injury right away. It was fine after that. I think Kirk Cousins will be fine. Keep in mind, no matter what quarterback I say, you guys are going to find a problem with. Aaron Rodgers, he's lost it. He's old. All right. Oh, well, what about, go get Russell Wilson. Oh, Russell Wilson, he's definitely lost his stuff. These quarterbacks, as Kevin and I discussed the other day, they're available for a reason. They're available for a reason. You're going to look at the deficiencies. I'm going to look at what they're capable of doing and what they could do in Kevin Stefanski's offense. I'll take it. There's only one quarterback. Technically 2. DTR just isn't good. Dorian Thompson-Robinson is not a good NFL quarterback. He did his job. His job was to go start games, to be bad, and get them a top draft pick, and he did that. The only way he could have had a better season last year is if he would have led the Browns to the number 1 overall pick instead of the number 2 pick. DTR was god awful, and Deshaun Watson has just been a train wreck of an experiment since they traded for him, right? Every quarterback outside of that has had success in Kevin Stefanski's offense, whether it was Jacoby Brissett, whether it was Joe Flacco, okay, whether it was Jameis Winston. Like, Kirk Cousins had success when he was at Minnesota with him. Every quarterback that has played in Stefanski's system that is capable of even remotely coming close to throwing a football has had success. I think he'll be fine. But Troy, I'm with you. I'm not saying he's going to win an MVP, but I 1,000,000% believe that Kirk Cousins can get it done in Cleveland. We'll see what that means, though. Dennis says 9 interceptions, 1 touchdown in the last 5 games for Cousins. I think he's done. I'd rather just draft a quarterback at 2. Yeah, but I also think, if you look at, the Falcons too, outside of Bijan Robinson, that wasn't a good football team. That team vastly underachieved last year, and it didn't matter when they even when they went to Michael Penix Jr., they didn't do anything last year either. So I'm with you. Kirk Cousins is responsible for that. I'm not saying that they had Patrick Mahomes back there and he just had no help. He was responsible for it too, but he also was a guy that was coming off that Achilles injury. I think he'll be fine. Another full offseason to prepare, go back to a system he's comfortable in on top of that, not having to worry about, a backup taking his job. Your concerns are warranted. Let's just put it that way. I'm not going to say Kirk Cousins is winning MVP, but of all the options out there, I think he gives Cleveland the best shot at getting back to what they were 2 years ago. Either way. All right, it's the Justin Kinner Show, 1410 ESPN Radio. We are brought to you by Frickers. Hey, it's tax time. Tax season is here, and I'm sure you're thinking about who's going to be doing my taxes. Try Michael Maxwell and our friends over at Arrowhead Tax Service in New Carlisle. Give Michael Maxwell a call today, 937-543-5770. They're ready to serve you at 113 West Jefferson Street. Make sure you go and give them a visit in New Carlisle. Arrowhead Tax Service gives back to the community through athletics and nonprofits, and all new clients save 10% off online at arrowheadtaxservice.com, where their target is your demand. Ron Howard. Yes, Ron, I see it. Till further notice, still the Browns. They'll find a way to screw it up. I'm done defending them. I've lost that battle one too many times. However, they did make the playoffs 2 years ago, right? They didn't screw it up that year. Oh, they lost in the playoffs. Well, all but one team loses in the playoffs every year. So we'll see. We'll see. Cleveland finished last in the division next year. Man, possibly. How good can they have? The AFC North is still very, very good. I mean, the Bengals, they won 9 games last year. I don't think they're better right now. I mean, they're better, but not better enough to say that they've improved by 2 or 3 games. I don't think they're that better. The draft, we have to wait on the Bengals because that front office freed up a bunch of cap space to just do nothing with for whatever reason. But either way, let's talk college hoops. Ohio State going to be in action coming up around the corner. The Bearcats got their ass whooped just a little bit ago in the Big 12 tournament. Xavier on the bubble, but their at-large hopes still very much alive. How many teams from the state of Ohio can we truly expect to see be dancing in March? Selection Sunday coming up this weekend, of course. But conference tournaments have been tipping off all across the week. So we'll get to that when we come back. More of the Justin Kinner Show presented by Frickers next.
At Lee's Famous Recipe Chicken, we
NFL, Joe Burrow is the least accomplished.
Getting better.
1,000,000%. I 1,000,000% believe that the Dayton Flyers are afraid of the Wright State Raiders. That's why they come up with every excuse in the book not to play them.
There it is. The hottest take of them all. It's the Justin Kinner Show, presented by Frickers, live on 1410 ESPN Radio.
The Justin Kinner Show, presented by Frickers. Frickers, your home for fun, food, sports, and spirits. We welcome you back. Happy Wednesday. We do have Reds spring training baseball that we'll have coming up for you here, top of the hour. That will walk you right up to tip-off of the Ohio State-Iowa Big Ten tournament game. Pretty excited about that. A lot of live sports here on 1410 ESPN Radio, whether it's Wright State basketball, whether it's Ohio State basketball, whether it's Cincinnati Reds baseball, Ohio State football. We have it for you. And, of course, we always appreciate when you guys tune in and catch it all right here on 1410 Wing AM. It's now time for our First Four update presented by our friends over at the Big Hoopla. The Big Hoopla, of course, the organizing committee that helps bring you the First Four to the Miami Valley each and every year. ESPN's Joe Lunardi. Here's the latest on his bracketology and how he sees the First Four playing out. How about this? You know, when I said back in January that we could potentially have 4 at-large teams just from the state of Ohio, I felt pretty good about that. Dayton at one point was in the top 25. Cincinnati was in the top 25. Xavier was just winning for, consistently pretty much throughout this time. Ohio State, they were rolling. Ohio State was really good to start the season, but that's, some people said that was a Chris Holtmann thing, that they were really good in November, December, and they tailed off come Big Ten play. That just might be an Ohio State thing because it's been kind of a very similar type of vibe during the Jake Diebler run so far, but it is year one for him, so we'll be a little patient. But I bring this up because I love the teams that Joe Lunardi has coming to UD Arena for the First Four. Okay? His latest bracketology, Joe Lunardi that is, has Ohio State and Xavier, not just as bubble teams, but as First Four teams. He has Ohio State and Xavier both on the 12th seed line going head-to-head at UD Arena. How cool would that be? How cool would that be to see Ohio State and Xavier, Sean Miller against Jake Diebler, going head-to-head in the NCAA tournament in the 12 versus 12 of the First Four? I think that's pretty damn cool. The second First Four matchup with the 11 seeds, Oklahoma and Indiana. Indiana, of course, has been a storied program. They're a storied program, but a lot of headlines this season. That's another Big Ten team that just can't seem to figure it out. Mike Woodson announced that this would be his final season. Could his final season as head coach of his alma mater end up being in the First Four, being in the NCAA tournament? ESPN's Joe Lunardi believes that is the case. I also saw today an interesting thing that Clemson's head coach, Brad Brownell, who's been there for 15 years, Brad Brownell took the Clemson job 15 years ago after leading Wright State to the NCAA tournament. Brad Brownell was a hell of a coach at Wright State. In fact, Billy Donlin was his assistant coach at Wright State when Brad Brownell took the Clemson job and has been very successful there. Billy Donlin stayed back. He was the head coach for about 6 or 7 years before a coaching change happened. Billy Donlin, former Wright State coach, as well as, of course, as we're talking about, also an assistant coach of Brad Brownell over at Clemson right now. So it'd be very interesting if Brad Brownell does get the Indiana job. Brad Brownell is being heavily rumored to be the next head coach at Indiana. We'll see if the former Wright State coach, if that ends up being the case. But I did find that to be interesting. Clemson, the number 3 seed in the ACC tournament, one of the best teams in the country. Clemson and Brad Brownell doing a fantastic job. But yeah, that First Four update presented by the Big Hoopla, the organizing committee that helps bring you the First Four each and every year here to the Miami Valley. As far as the Dayton Flyers are concerned, they are a bubble team, according to Joe Lunardi. He has Dayton on the next 4 outline. Dayton, along with Wake Forest, UC Irvine, and Cincinnati. Cincinnati got beat by 20 against Iowa State earlier today in the Big 12 tournament. They're not making the NCAA tournament. Cincinnati, that is a bad, talented basketball team. They are a talented, bad team. However you want to word that. There's a lot of talent on that roster. I don't know what to make of Wes Miller. I hate to say anything bad about Wes because I've heard nothing but great things from people about him, how good of a person he is, how good of a coach he is. They just haven't been good during his time there. And to be fair, when you look at the fact that Mick Cronin left Cincinnati back in 2019, nobody's been good there. John Brandon was great at Northern Kentucky. John Brandon took the Norse to multiple NCAA tournaments. NKU, I forgot the name of the team this season, and it's driving me St. Thomas, I think. There's a team this season that it's the first year that they're NCAA, or it's the first year of Division I. They should be in the NCAA tournament but can't make it. Northern Kentucky, in their very first year of being NCAA tournament eligible, John Brandon and Northern Kentucky made the tournament that year. He led them to multiple tournaments. He was the right guy to get the job at the time. If it didn't work. Wes Miller is not working. I don't know what it's going to take to work at Cincinnati, but I'm a big fan of the Cincinnati basketball program. I don't get why it's not working. But I think it's going to take the right coach, and I don't know if Wes Miller's that. But Cincinnati's a bubble team, according to Joe Lunardi. They're not getting in. They're not getting in. But on Sunday night, Selection Sunday, if it came across the screen that Xavier and Ohio State are playing one another in the 12 seed matchup at UD Arena in the first four, I think that's going to be pretty damn exciting. That'll be pretty damn exciting if you ask me. So we'll see what ends up happening there. But let's see. I'm trying to catch up on some of these comments. Chad Kinser, why does the Facebook feed cut off at 4 p.m. now? We're just done at 4 because of spring training. Chad, once we get through spring training, we'll be back to the full show at that point. So I'm only with you till 4 today. We're about to hand it off to the Reds, and then they'll hand you off to Ohio State basketball at 6. So just a heads up there. But yes, we will be live every day from 3 to 5 on Facebook, 3 to 6 overall, 3 to 5 on Facebook. But yeah, see, producer Shaw, the producer of the show, David Shaw, he has it covered. He's explaining it there in the chat. So there you go. Shaw says, I don't understand this bubble. A lot of these bubble teams you have mentioned are not good. Ohio State, Indiana should not be on the bubble. Well, Shaw, don't argue with me. It's Lunardi's bracketology, by the way. And look, I don't even know what to make of some of this bubble talk. A lot of it has to do with the net rankings too. When you look at the quad 1, 2, 3, and 4s, we'll see. I think Ohio State's bubbles, because look, they've had a lot of quad 1 opportunities and they've capitalized on those. That's the thing. There's been multiple times where Ohio State, I've thought that their season and that their chances of getting into the tournament and at large are done, and then they'll get a big win. They're not playing well right now, though. They just got beat by Indiana the other night, but Indiana played themselves onto that bubble by beating Ohio State. So if you lose to Indiana, it's almost like a good loss, as weird as that sounds. I'm not a fan of that, but that's just how this system has kind of been formulated. I think as you know, Shaw, and all of us, the college football playoff format is silly. How you justify who gets in and out is silly. The quad 1, 2, 3, and 4, the net rankings, the RPI rankings, however you want to, whatever it is, Rosie Palm, Jerry Palm, whatever the hell his name is, I don't know. Bottom, all these dudes, they have this mathematical equation. And you know how I feel about the stats and the numbers and all this stuff. You can make anything sing and dance however you want. The bottom line is, whoever's in charge of selecting these teams, guys, I want Xavier and I want Ohio State and I want them head-to-head at UD Arena. I don't care. But I'm with you. Ohio State doesn't feel like an at-large team. But Joe Lunardi has them as an 11? That's kind of strange. Same thing with Xavier. Xavier has not played good teams at all year. They've won a lot of games. They haven't beat a lot of good teams. Xavier will play Marquette, a top 25 team. They will play Marquette tomorrow at 2:30 in the Big East tournament. So, again, that's a huge opportunity for Xavier there. You beat Marquette, you win a game or two in the Big East tournament. Win the Big East tournament, obviously you're definitely in there. We'll see what ends up happening when it's all said and done. Dayton, get your stuff together. Get your stuff together. If they missed the tournament this year, man, oh man, I have no clue. Anthony Grant's the most interesting coach in college basketball to me. I've never come across a coach that is so good and so bad at his job at the same time. It is fascinating. It is fascinating. I've never seen it. You're 2-2 against top 10 teams in the country. You beat top 25 Marquette on your home floor. You dominate against North Carolina. I know you lose, but like you prove that you are right there with North Carolina, Iowa State. You blow out the back-to-back defending national champions and obviously UConn. Like, I don't get it. I don't understand how you could do that and then struggle in the A-10. And even your wins they're not convincing enough. I don't think Dayton's, by the way, of all the bubble teams, and this is just me being a hater, I know, they don't deserve to get an at-large bid. The Dayton Flyers, you want to talk about the teams on the bubble that don't deserve to be there, Shaw, Xavier probably doesn't deserve to be there when you look at their quad 1s and all that stuff like that. Dayton has no business being anywhere near the at-large conversation. They don't deserve it. You don't get to play poorly in a bad conference and expect to be rewarded by making the tournament. I just don't get it. I can't get on board with that. I'm out on Anthony Grant. I'm out on Dayton. Go do something. They have not won the A10 tournament since 2003. And they won that, of course, because they won it on their home floor. And God knows if they don't play a game at UD Arena, they're probably not going to win the damn thing. So I don't know. I'm fascinated to see what happens, but it's all going to come to this Sunday, Selection Sunday. Kev Nash and I will be live at Hollywood Gaming this Sunday from 5 to 7 p.m. Inside the sports book. From 5 to 7, reacting. We'll be building up the first hour to the bracket reveal at 6, and then at 6 o'clock, instant reaction, reacting to each region as they announce the bracket. We had a great time last year at Hollywood Gaming. We're looking forward to it again this year. It's the Kenner and Kev Selection Sunday show this Sunday, Hollywood Gaming. We look forward to seeing you there. We'll have prizes and other fun stuff to give away. We'll also be live at Frickers a week from tomorrow, next Thursday, the first round of the NCAA tournament in Centerville from 3 to 5. Kevin and I will be out there in Centerville at Frickers for a live show, watching the first round games and reacting to that. We look forward to seeing you guys out there as well. All right, good stuff. We do have Reds baseball coming up next. Good news. So we get to see Andrew Abbott for the first time this spring. I talked about that earlier. And also Spencer Steer will be taking his first at-bats in spring training action today as well. So that's coming up on this spring training game for the Reds. So we got Red spring training now. Ohio State basketball, Big Ten play coming up at 6. Busy evening for you right here on 1410 ESPN Radio. Until tomorrow, this has been the Justin Kinner Show presented by Frickers. Frickers, your home for fun, food, sports, and spirits. Talk to you tomorrow.
Coming to you live from the Super